Writing a literature review can steal an entire month of your life, or it can take a focused weekend, and the difference is not your IQ, it's your system. Today, I want to walk you through the 8-step framework I use to cut that time down to a fraction, while still ending up with something that looks and reads like a professional, PhD-level review. We're going to write faster, skip the busy work, and be much more intentional in how we search, read, and turn papers into actual paragraphs. We'll do all of this inside Anara AI, using its research workspace and agents as a support system, not as a replacement for your brain. I'll show you how to organize your sources, synthesize them without drowning in PDFs, and build a clean structure so you're never staring at a blank page wondering what to write next. By the end of this video, you'll have an 8-step process you can repeat for every chapter, every assignment, and every future project. If you like clear, honest videos about AI for serious research, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And now, let's jump into the 8-step system for writing your literature review efficiently with Anara. Step 1 is to define clear objectives and sharpen your keywords before you touch any database or AI tool. Most people open their laptop, type a big vague question into a search bar, and then wonder why they're drowning in irrelevant PDFs. Your job at this stage is to decide exactly what your literature review is and is not about. What is the specific question you want to answer? Which population, context, or time frame are you interested in? Where are the boundaries of this review? The clearer this is, the faster everything else goes. You can even use Anara right away for this step. Open a fresh chat and type something like, "I'm writing a literature review on X. Help me break this into 3 to 5 focused sub-questions and a list of keywords and synonyms I should search for." Anara will suggest narrower angles, alternative terms, and related concepts. You don't just accept everything, you look at that list and choose what actually matches your project. Once you've done that, you're no longer doing a review about coffee and health. You're reviewing acute and chronic effects of low coffee intake on cardiovascular markers in adults, and your brain finally has something concrete to aim at. Step 2 is to use a systematic approach when you start searching for literature instead of random late-night Googling. Pick 1 or 2 main places to search, like Google Scholar, PubMed, Web of Science, or a field-specific database, and commit to a simple pattern. For example, you might start with your main keyword plus 1 key outcome, then swap the outcome word, then swap the population word. Inside Anara, you can mirror this structure by building a clean library as you go. Each time you find a strong, relevant paper, download the PDF and upload it into Anara's workspace, tagging it into a folder like Core RCTs or Mechanism Papers. The goal for this step is not to collect everything that has ever been written. It's to systematically build a set of maybe 10 to 15 high-quality, highly relevant sources that really deserve to be read. If you skip this and just save whatever looks interesting, you'll easily lose a week scrolling and collecting papers that never make it into your review. A calm, repeated search pattern plus a clear rule like "I stop when I have 10 solid papers in each category" will save you more time than any writing hack. Step 3 is to skim the abstract and conclusions first, and this is where Anara AI becomes a real-time saver instead of a toy. Do not try to read every paper line by line on the first pass. Imagine you have 10 papers and each one takes a full day to read carefully. That's 2 weeks gone and you haven't written a word. Instead, take each new paper and drop the PDF into Anara. Open it in the viewer and let the AI assist you. You can use the built-in prompts like "create a study guide" or "give me exam-style questions." But for literature review purposes, a simple prompt like "explain the main findings and main conclusions of this paper in clear language" works extremely well. In a few seconds, you get a structured summary of the key results and the big message. That summary helps you make 2 decisions. First, is this paper relevant enough to keep in your main review? And second, if yes, what exactly might you talk about when you write about it? You can go a little further by asking, what future work or research gaps does this paper suggest? And Anara will pull those sentences out for you as well. Those 2 questions alone, main findings and future work, are the kind of thing that would normally take you hours of reading and highlighting. Here they're available in seconds, and you still have the full paper open if you decide it's worth a deeper read. By the way, if you want to try this while you're watching, instead of just listening, I've put the Anara link down in the description. You can open it in another tab, upload one of your own PDFs, and follow along with these steps in real time, so it's not just theory. Step 4 is to focus on key themes and theories, instead of treating each paper like a lonely island. Once you've skimmed your core set of papers and decided which ones belong in your review, your job is to see patterns. This is where people either start to think like a researcher or get stuck summarizing one paper after another. Start on your main Anara workspace and ask a global question about your library. Something like, "From all the papers in my workspace, which ones discuss low coffee intake?" Or which sources focus on adolescent participants? Anara will give you a list of specific papers with tiny reference numbers you can click to jump straight into the relevant sections. That alone helps you group studies into meaningful buckets. You can then create folders inside Anara with names like low coffee concentration, high coffee intake, or lifestyle plus coffee, and drag the right papers into each group. Once you have, say, 4 papers in a folder called Coffee and Lifestyle, you can open that folder and ask, what are the common themes within this group? Anara will scan just those 4 and tell you, for example, that they all touch on acute cardiovascular effects, long-term metabolic changes, and differences across age groups, again with citations for each claim. That answer is basically a ready-made paragraph plan. Anara's graph view can also be surprisingly helpful. It draws your library as a network, showing which papers are linked by topics or citations, so you can visually spot clusters that belong in the same section of your review. Instead of staring at a long list of PDFs, you suddenly see a structure emerging from your literature. Step 5 is to use citation tools to handle the boring parts of referencing so you can keep your attention on the ideas. Inside Anara, you can create a new note. Think of it as a blank document where your draft can live. Give it a working title like The Role of IQ Gap 1 Proteins in X, and start writing in your own words. If you get stuck on phrasing, you can type a double plus sign to let Anara suggest a draft sentence or paragraph. But the goal is not to copy this text directly. Instead, treat it as a live example of good academic structure, how the sentences flow, how transitions are used, how claims are introduced. That model can help you rewrite the same idea in your own voice. The real magic for literature reviews, though, is the citation feature. Highlight a sentence that makes a factual claim and click Find Citations. Anara will search both online databases and your personal library for relevant sources. If it finds something appropriate, you can tell it to add that paper as a citation and insert it into your bibliography at the bottom of the note. If you don't like the citation style, you can change the format, APA, Harvard, Vancouver, and Anara will automatically update the entire reference list. This turns referencing from a late-night panic into a calm, ongoing part of your drafting process. Just remember the ethical line. You are responsible for checking that the suggested citations really support what you wrote. Step 6 is to write your review in segments, not in one giant, shapeless block of text. A literature review that reads well almost always follows a simple structure: a short introduction that explains your purpose and question, a middle that is organized by themes or theories, and a conclusion that summarizes what the field knows, what it does not know, and where the gaps are. With the themes you identified in Step 4, you can go into your Anara note and create mini-headings, or at least mental sections like acute effects, chronic effects, mechanisms, and population differences. Then you tackle them one by one. For each theme, ask Anara a targeted question based on the papers in the relevant folder. Something like, summarize how these 4 papers describe the chronic effects of low coffee intake on blood pressure, noting agreements and disagreements. Use the answer as a scaffold, not as final text. Check the references, underline key points, and then rewrite the paragraph in your own words, adding your own critical comments. Working in segments like this keeps you from feeling like you have to write the whole thing in one go. Instead, you're just finishing one theme at a time, and Anara is there to keep all the sources organized and visible while you focus on the argument. Step 7 is not to get bogged down by excessive detail in every single paper. Your goal is to synthesize, not to retell. It's very tempting, especially early in your research journey, to devote a full paragraph to each study: the methods, the sample size, the procedure, every result, every limitation. That kind of writing is heavy to read and slow to produce, and it does not really show critical thinking. A better strategy is to ask yourself, what do these papers collectively say about my theme? And then use Anara to help you answer that at a higher level. For example, instead of describing 3 separate method sections, you might ask, across the papers in this folder, what are the main methodological strengths and weaknesses, and how might they affect the interpretation of results? Anara will point you to patterns, small sample sizes, short follow-up, reliance on self-report, and you can use those patterns to write a critical paragraph that mentions papers only as needed. That way, you use detail selectively to support a broader point, rather than drowning your reader in description. The same applies to results. Focus on where studies agree, where they conflict, and why that might be, rather than listing every p-value. Step 8 is to stay on track with a realistic time limit and to treat your 8-step system as a schedule, not just a theory. If you decide you want to write this literature review in 2 days, you can absolutely do that. but you need to decide ahead of time how many hours go into each phase. You might give yourself one focused hour for the initial systematic search, 2 hours to skim abstracts and run Anara summaries, 1 hour to map themes and build your folder structure, another hour to outline your segments, and then the remaining time for drafting and editing. The exact numbers will depend on your topic and your deadline, but the principle is the same. Put boundaries on each step so you don't spend 3 evenings searching and 0 time writing. You can even note your planned time blocks in an Anara note at the top of your project as a mini project plan and check them off as you go. When you work like this, with clear objectives, a systematic search, smart use of Anara to summarize and organize, theme-based structuring, citation tools, segmented writing, a focus on synthesis, and a time limit, you stop treating the literature review as this mysterious monster and start treating it as an 8-step process you can repeat every time. I really hope this video has made the whole literature review process feel lighter and more doable, not just like another thing on your never-ending PhD to-do list. If you want to try working this way instead of fighting with 20 PDFs alone at 2 a.m., I've put the Anara AI link down in the description so you can test it on your own papers. Let me know in the comments where you are right now with your literature review and what you're struggling with most. I do read them, and it helps me plan the next tutorials. And if you want to see how this fits into a full AI workflow from first search to finished draft, go watch the next video on the screen.